Grace was born on a stormy October night in Surler, Lagos, in a cramped apartment where rain dripped through the ceiling into plastic buckets. Her father, Mr. Ez, a dedicated secondary school teacher, walked the narrow corridor praying aloud while her mother pushed through labor. When the midwife handed over the tiny, crying bundle, Mama Njozi looked at her daughter and said softly, "This child will lift us all." From day one, Grace carried that hope like a quiet promise. Their home was a typical face me a face, you compound walls thin enough to hear every neighbor's argument or laughter. Mornings filled with the clang of buckets at the shared tap and the sizzle of akara from kerosene stoves. Mr. Ez left early, in his pressed but faded shirt, teaching English to rowdy teenagers with endless patience. His salary stretched thin across rent, school fees, and church tithes. Mama Njozi ran the provision store out front, selling rice by the cup, tins of milk, indomie, and sweets to passing kids. She never complained, even when her back ached from bending over stock all day. The family of 6 squeezed into 3 rooms Grace shared with her siblings, big brother Chidi, little sister Amaka, and baby Kalichi. Life was loud, close, and full of small joys. Radio plays on Sunday evenings, shared plates of jollof, dreams spoken in whispers after lights out. Grace stood out early. While other children ran wild in the sandy yard, she sat reading under the mango tree library books, school notes, anything she could borrow. Book girl, neighbors called her. But her father encouraged it. Knowledge stays with you forever. Primary school came easy always, first in class, prizes for essays and math. Secondary school tested her. Long bus rides, packed classrooms, WAEC pressure. She studied by lantern light during blackouts, her parents quietly cutting corners to buy her textbooks. WAEC results 9 has brought the compound alive with cheers. JMB followed, high score, admission to University of Lagos for business administration. Her father cried openly the day the letter came. "Go make us proud, my daughter." Uni opened doors. Hostel life, group projects, the electric hum of Lagos ambition. Grace hustled, tutoring, selling airtime, sending money home. She dreamed of the day she'd buy her parents a real house. Then David walked in. At a campus expo in her 3rd year, he stood behind a table of phone gadgets, flashing that easy smile. Grace needed a charger. He fixed it on the spot. No charge. Your smile is worth more than any sale. They talked, family struggles, big dreams. He was from IKEA, accounting student, side hustling like her. Numbers exchanged. First date, Mama put Amala long talks. Dates grew, campus walks, shared music, small surprises. He met her family, respectful, helpful, charming. Mama Njozi approved, hold this one tight. It's 3 years of real love. Proposal on graduation, day simple ring, kneeling amid cheers. Marry me, Grace. Let's build forever. Wedding joy, church vows, dancing reception, everyone toasting their match. Married life started sweet in their Yaba flat. David in real estate, Grace in marketing. Mornings of tea and kisses, weekends planning a family and future house. "You're my everything," he'd say, holding her close. But 3 years in, cracks appeared. Late nights, first client meetings. Perfume on his collar one time. Grace asked. He promised it was nothing. She let it go. Money arguments next. Flashy purchases while she covered bills. He snapped. She cried. He apologized with gifts. She forgave. Emotional distance grew. Less talk, less touch, canceled dates. Grace tried romantic dinners, new clothes. Too tired, he'd say. Pride hurt, but she stayed quiet. Then the phone buzzed while he showered. "Miss you, handsome," from Sarah. She confronted. "Work friend," he claimed. Doubt planted. The real break came one afternoon. Grace surprised him at the office with homemade jollof. Pushed open his door, David locked in a deep kiss with a woman in tight red cirrha, hands on her back. They sprang apart. Grace. Food dropped. Heart shattered. She stared, tears instant. How long? Grace, please. She left without another word. Drove home numb. That night he begged on his knees. It was stupid. One mistake. I love only you. Give me a chance. Grace cried all night. Thought of their vows, her parents' pride in the marriage, the life they'd built. She loved him still. This ends now, she said. No more lies. Counseling if needed. But if it happens again, he swore. Never, I promise. For months, things seemed better. He came home early, phone open, extra affection. Grace relaxed a little, hoped healing was real. She even started dreaming of kids again. But old habits returned slowly. First relapse. Another late-night site visit, with shirt with lipstick. He denied at first, then admitted just drinks. Grace confronted. He cried, promised therapy. She forgave again because walking away felt like failing everything they'd built. Second slip. Mysterious hotel charge on the card. He said, client entertainment. She checked messages when he slept flirty texts to Sarah again. Fight exploded. You promised. He begged forgiveness, blamed stress. Grace, exhausted, gave one last chance. This is it, David. Third betrayal. She found condoms in his car pocket, not theirs. Confrontation in the kitchen, voices shaking. He admitted seeing Sarah occasionally. I love you, but I'm weak. Grace felt the final crack trust gone, pride in tatters, love turning to ash. That night she sat alone on the balcony, Lagos lights blurring through tears. Flashbacks hit, beach dates, wedding dance, his promises. Regret burned. Why did she forgive so many times? But beneath the pain, anger rose. The surler girl who'd fought for every opportunity remembered her worth, and she remembered the secret she'd hidden for him, the inheritance from her late uncle, oil investments. Tech stocks she'd quietly managed and grown into billions. A legacy she'd never claimed, wanting their life simple and equal. No more. David wasn't changing. He wasn't ready. Grace wiped her tears, picked up her phone, and called her brother Chidi. I need advice. It's time to end this my way. Sweet payback was no longer a thought. It was a plan. Grace sat on the balcony long after the kitchen fight ended, the city lights of Lagos twinkling below like they had no idea her world had cracked open again. The condoms in David's car pocket burned in her mind, not just the betrayal, but the casualness of it. He hadn't even bothered to hide them properly. That small detail hurt more than the act itself. It showed disrespect, indifference. She stared at her wedding ring, twisting it slowly. The silver had dulled over the years, just like the promises it once carried. The next morning, David acted like nothing had happened. He kissed her cheek, made tea, asked about her day at work. We're good now, right? Last night was just heat of the moment. Grace looked at him, really looked, and saw a stranger wearing her husband's face. She nodded, once voice flat. We're talking later. He smiled, relieved, grabbed his keys, and left for the office. She didn't go to work. Instead, she called Nkechi, her ride-or-die friend, since uni days. Nkechi arrived within the hour, still in her nurse scrubs, carrying 2 takeaway cups of hot tea from the spot near the hospital. They sat on the living room couch, the same one where Grace and David used to cuddle and watch movies. Tell me everything. Nkechi said, no judgment in her eyes. Grace poured it out: the first affair with Sarah, the forgiveness, the promises, the relapses. The lipstick, the texts, the hotel charge, now the condoms. I keep giving chances because I remember who he used to be. The boy who fixed my charger for free, who danced with me at our wedding like I was the only woman in the world. But that man is gone, Nkechi. And every time I forgive, I lose a little more of myself. Nkechi listened quietly, then squeezed her hand. You didn't lose yourself. You just trusted the wrong person with your heart. But listen, forgiveness doesn't mean staying. It means freeing yourself from carrying his mess. You've given him 3 clear chances. He's shown you who he is. Believe him. Grace nodded slowly. For the first time, the idea of leaving didn't feel like defeat. It felt like survival. Over the next week, she moved in silence. She didn't confront David again, not yet. Instead, she started gathering pieces. She photographed the condoms, still in his car, saved screenshots of old messages she'd found months ago, but never used noted dates of his late nights against bank statements showing unexplained withdrawals. She spoke to Chidi on the phone, her lawyer brother in Abuja. Sis, document everything. No emotion, just facts. And start thinking about what you want long-term. Assets divorce protection. Chidi paused. You know about Uncle Emeka's trust, right? The one Dad never wanted to touch because it came from oil money he considered dirty. It's still there. Stocks, properties, liquid cash. You've been the silent trustee all these years. It's grown a lot. Grace had known, but she'd buried it deep. Uncle Emeka, her mother's older brother, had died when she was in uni. No wife, no kids. He'd left a chunk to her quietly through a family lawyer because he saw her drive her intelligence. Don't waste it on flash, he'd written in the letter. Build something lasting. She'd invested wisely over the years: blue-chip stocks, real estate in emerging areas like Echo Atlantic and Banana Island tech startups. What started as a few million naira had ballooned into billions. A hidden billionaire legacy she'd never claimed publicly because she wanted David to feel like an equal partner, not a kept man. Now that legacy felt like armor. She met with the family lawyer, Mr. Okoro, in a quiet cafe in Victoria Island. He slid a folder across the table. Your net worth is north of 8 billion naira. Grace. Properties alone: 3 luxury apartments, commercial plots, shares in 2 oil service companies. Liquid cash, ready to move. You never touched the principal. It's all yours. Grace felt a strange mix of power and sadness. I hid it for love. Now I need it for freedom. Mr. Okoro nodded. We can structure things quietly. Prenup wasn't signed, but community property laws apply. You have leverage. Back home, David noticed her calm. You've been different, he said one evening over dinner. Quiet. Are we okay? Grace met his eyes. We're not okay, David, and we haven't been for a long time. He reached for her hand. She pulled back gently. I forgave you the first time because I loved you. The second, because I believed change was possible. The third, because I was scared of starting over. But I'm not scared anymore. I'm done. His face changed, shock, then anger. So what, you're leaving? After everything? I'm not leaving yet, she said evenly. But I'm preparing. And you should too. That night, David slept on the couch. Grace lay awake planning. She opened a separate bank account, transferred small amounts at first, enough to live independently without alerting him. She confided in her mother over the phone, voice breaking only once. Mama and Josie listened, then said simply, My daughter, you are stronger than any man who cannot keep his word. Come home if you need to, but don't shrink yourself for anyone. The next confrontation came 2 weeks later. Grace had found fresh messages, Sarah again planning a weekend getaway. David had lied about a business trip to Abuja. She waited until he came home, suitcase still in hand. She placed printouts on the dining table, messages, receipts, hotel, bookings under his name, explained David's. Face drained of color. Grace, it's not it, she cut in. No more lies. No more it was a mistake. You chose this. Over and over, he sank into a chair. I don't know why I keep doing it. I love you. But Sarah makes me feel young, exciting. With you, it's routine. The words hit like a slap. Routine. After all the years, the support, the dreams, she felt tears rise but pushed them down. Then go be young and exciting. I'm done being your safety net, David begged. Tears, promises, even brought up kids they never had. We can fix this. Therapy, new start. Grace shook her head. You had your chances. I'm activating what I've kept hidden. The money Uncle Emeka left me, it's billions now. Properties, investments. I never told you because I wanted us to build together, but you chose to break us instead. His eyes widened. Billions. You hid billions from me? I hid it from the world, she said quietly. For us, but us is over. Silence stretched. Then David laughed, bitter, disbelieving. So you're rich, and I'm the fool? You'll take everything? No, Grace said. I'll take what's fair, and you'll learn what losing trust really costs. She walked to the bedroom, locked the door. David pounded once, then left. She heard the front door slam. The storm was here. Grace felt fear, yes, but also fire. The Surler girl had become a woman who would not be broken again. She picked up her phone and texted Lekki, "It's done. Phase 2 starts tomorrow." Sweet payback wasn't revenge for revenge's sake. It was reclaiming her life, her worth, her power. And David was about to see just how high the price of betrayal could be. Grace woke up the morning after David slammed the door with a clarity she hadn't felt in years. The apartment felt different, lighter, as if the walls themselves had exhaled. She didn't cry. She didn't rage. She simply got up, made strong black tea the way her father used to, and sat at the dining table with a fresh notebook. On the first page, she wrote one word in bold: freedom. Phase 2 wasn't loud at first. It was surgical. Grace contacted Mr. Okoro again and instructed him to freeze joint accounts quietly. No dramatic moves, just enough to protect what was hers. She transferred the bulk of her personal funds into new accounts under her name only. Then she started the paperwork. Separation agreement, asset division, divorce petition. Chidi flew in from Abuja for the weekend, bringing a thick folder of legal documents. They sat in the living room late into the night, reviewing every line. "You're entitled to half of everything acquired during the marriage," Chidi explained. "But the inheritance? That's separate property. It never mixed with marital funds. He gets nothing from it unless you choose to give." Grace nodded. "I won't give him a kobo from Uncle Emeka's money. But I'll be fair on the rest. The flat, the cars, the savings we built together. I don't want revenge to turn me bitter. I want justice." Chidi smiled proudly. "That's my sister. Strong and fair." While the lawyers worked behind the scenes, Grace began rebuilding her daily life. She took a short leave from work, told her boss she needed personal time. Colleagues sent concerned messages. She replied with calm assurances. She reconnected with old friends in Lekki, hosted a small girls' night at her place in Ikea. They ate pepper soup, drank palm wine, and laughed until tears came. For the first time in months, Grace laughed without forcing it. She danced to old Afrobeat songs, felt the rhythm in her bones, and remembered what it felt like to be truly alive. David, meanwhile, spiraled. He moved in with a cousin, and Festac called her every day, at first begging, then angry, then desperate. "You can't just throw away 5 years like this." Grace listened to voicemails, but rarely answered. When she did, her voice was steady. "You threw it away, David, piece by piece." Sarah became bolder. She posted cryptic stories on Instagram sunsets, with captions like "New chapter, no regrets." Grace saw them through a mutual friend's screen. Instead of pain, she felt pity. Sarah thought she'd won a prize. She had no idea the prize was already tarnished. Grace decided the payback needed to be public, not hidden. She scheduled a small family gathering at her parents' house in Surulere. Not a confrontation, she told everyone. Just catching up. She invited David's parents to his mother, Mama Ada, who had always treated Grace like a daughter, his father, Baba Koi, who admired her ambition. Chidi brought his wife and kids, and Lekki came with wine. The compound, filled with familiar smells, Mama put rice-grilled fish children running around playing in the sand. Grace waited until everyone was seated in the living room, plates balanced on laps. She stood up, cleared her throat. The room quieted. "I called you all here because something important has happened, and I want you to hear it from me first." She looked at David's mother. "Mama, you've been kind to me since day one." "You called me daughter? I've always respected that." Mama Ada nodded, eyes already glistening. Grace continued. "David and I are separating. We've tried, God knows I tried. I forgave him once, twice, 3 times. But some things can't be fixed when the other person won't change." Gasps rippled through the room. David's father frowned. "What are you saying, Grace?" She took a breath. "He had an affair. More than once. With the same woman. I found messages, receipts, proof. I confronted him each time. He promised to stop. He didn't." Mama Ada covered her mouth. Baba Okoi looked at his son, who had arrived late and now sat in the corner, head down. Grace kept going, voice even. I stayed quiet for a long time because I loved him. Because I believed in our vows. But love isn't enough when trust is gone. So I'm leaving. And there's something else you should know? She paused, letting the silence settle. For years I kept a secret, not out of deceit, but out of love. I wanted David to feel we were equals. When Uncle Amika died, he left me an inheritance. I never told anyone the full amount. Not even David. I invested it quietly. Today that inheritance is worth over 8 billion naira. The room froze. Eyes widened. Whispers started. Someone dropped a spoon. Grace raised a hand. I'm not saying this to boast. I'm saying it so there's no confusion later. The money is mine legally, morally, completely. David will get his fair share of what we built together. But the legacy? That stays with me. It's what I'll use to rebuild, to help my family, to support causes I care about, and to remind myself that I am enough on my own. David looked up then, face twisted. You hid billions from me? From your husband? Grace met his gaze without flinching. I hid it from the pressure it would bring. I wanted us to hustle together. You chose to hustle with someone else. Maeda stood up slowly, walked to Grace and hugged her tight. My daughter, I'm so sorry. You didn't deserve this, Baba. Okoye shook his head at David. Son, you have brought shame on this family. David tried to speak, but his voice cracked. He stood and left without another word. The door closed softly behind him. After that night, things moved fast. The divorce papers were served. David signed without contesting the asset, split perhaps out of guilt, perhaps out of shock. Grace kept the yaba flat. He took the car and half the joint savings. She sold one of the inherited properties quietly and used the proceeds to buy a beautiful duplex in Lekki, her own name on the title, no shadows. She furnished it simply but with care, bookshelves full of novels, a balcony overlooking the lagoon, a quiet corner for prayer and reflection. Months later, Grace launched a small foundation in Uncle Emeka's name, scholarships for girls from Sriller and similar communities, business grants for women starting over after tough times. She spoke at events, shared her story in careful terms. Betrayal doesn't define you. How you rise from it does. People came up to her afterward, eyes shining, sharing their own stories. She listened, hugged them, felt the circle widen. One evening, as the sun set over the lagoon from her new balcony, Nkechi visited with a bottle of champagne. They toasted to new beginnings. You know, Nkechi said, I always knew you were powerful. But I didn't know you were billionaire powerful. Grace laughed, trail-free laughter. I didn't know either. I was too busy trying to be the perfect wife. Nkechi raised her glass. To the perfect woman, on her own terms. Grace clinked. To freedom, and to never apologizing for knowing your worth. In the quiet after Grace thought about David. She heard through mutual friends he was struggling. Job unstable, Sarah long gone once the money dried up. He'd moved back to Ikea, started over in a small flat. She felt no joy in his pain, only a gentle sadness for what could have been. But regret? None. She had forgiven too many times. Now she forgave herself for staying so long. The Surler girl had become a woman who built empires, loved deeply, and walked away when love turned toxic. She carried no bitterness, only lessons. Trust is earned, not assumed. Loyalty is a choice, not a promise. Pride can blind you, but it can also lift you, and sometimes the sweetest payback isn't destruction, it's thriving without apology. Grace looked out at the city light, her city, her future. She smiled softly. The storm had passed, the legacy was hers, and the best chapters were just beginning.